that condition. As I explained in the later chapters, it will be clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit and control over both. Quote that so many times. Arjuna argued that religious principles should be given more importance than politics or sociology, but he did not know the knowledge of matter. So, and the supreme is even more important than religious formularies. And because he was lacking in knowledge, he should not have posed himself as a very learned man. As he did not happen to be a very learned man, he was constantly lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this is actually learned, and for him there is no cause for lamentation, regardless of the condition of the material body. Om Agyanat Miranthasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shritafada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakharmatam Shah He Krishna Karna Sandho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sundarbhyasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminati Namne Nija Guru Hari Vanya Krishna Chitto Vichinto Parihita Pitri Gehadyanda Sangsara Kupaha Prabhu Bhajana Sukabdo Majayan Samsa Vishwo Bhuvijayati Vikaso Bhakti Purvo Yatindraha Rama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminati Namne Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyati Deshatarine Vaghishayasya Vadane Lakshmi Ryasya Shivakshasi Yasyaste Hridaye Samvittam Nrsimhamaham Bhaje Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yasa Devi Tata Guru Tasyaite Katita Hyata Prakashante Mahatmanaha Mukam Karti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Will that affect the audio? This is something we just have to tolerate.
They're blowing it, man.
Choices on it.
Does it need to be on?
I mean, yeah.
Is it messing with your sight with this whole like strobe thing going on?
With the what stroke thing?
Strobe.
What's a
Turn the
stroke?
AC on.
You know, I'm gonna get it. Turn the AC on.
Oh, it's,
Okay, I see.
oh yeah, I didn't realize that it's there.
It's not messing with audio.
Okay, so I'm missing the audio then, it's cool.
It's
fine.
AC, it's cold.
No, say it's cold. You cold, man. It's cold.
I was pretty hot, to be honest. Anyway, so this, this is the first verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is taking a position of being Arjuna's teacher. If you see in the previous verses, Arjuna has submitted to Krishna to be his disciple, understanding that he does not know what to do and what not to do. And we can see that though depending on which culture a person comes from, they take shelter of a particular kind of Maya. That, usually Vedic culture means, they take shelter of the mode of goodness, especially the higher births. That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta raja shayastata anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. And anyone knows this verse, what does that mean? Bhagavad Gita 9:33.
It's like what? And then small intelligence come back to...
No.
It's like the verse before that, Krishna explains that limited Shudras.
Yeah, like that verse before that is Mamhi Partha Vipashitya Yepi Sir Papa Yonayaha Striyo Vaishya Sata Shudrastepi Anti Parangvita. Right, so Krishna says even those who are low born, women, Shudras, Vaishyas, these are the low born, women, Shudras, Vaishyas, yeah. These are the three low born. There's a low birth, And Krishna says that even they can attain me very easily by taking the path of Krishna consciousness, devotional service. And then the next verse says, Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta raja sata Anityam asukam lokam mimam prapapuja swamadam. What to speak of those who are brahmanas and kshatriyas? They can very easily obtain my devotional service unto me and never return to this world, which anityam asukam lokam. Krishna makes this point, 2 times in a row. He says, in the 8th chapter, he says, Dukhalayam ashashvatam, and then he repeats the same point saying, anityam asukam lokam. It means the same thing. What does Dukhalayam ashashvatam mean?
Temporary full of misery.
Temporary and full of mystery. What does anityam asukam lokam mean?
Temporary has no happiness.
Exactly. Temporary is full of misery. Asukam also can mean misery. Asukam, no happiness. So, Krishna says that these people also can attain, what to speak to these people. So, over here we can see this, that, Arjuna being from a cultured, extremely cultured, background and, being in part of the Vedic, Vedic culture, he is giving reasons which people usually in the mode of goodness do, who have heard knowledge, who have some Vedic knowledge, What's Arjuna's main argument? Why does he not want to fight the war?
Because it's family.
Is that
It's a
adharma?
The
Yes,
women will
but
be-
that's the main thing, right? It says adharma bhivavat Krishna pradushyanti kurastreya srisha dursasa varshnaya jayate varna shankara. If the women are not protected, then they will be polluted. And when they are polluted, then unwanted progeny unwanted progeny arises. And when unwanted progeny arises, all hell breaks loose in society. So, these are the kinds of arguments that Arjuna is giving to Krishna, like, wow, look at this and look at that. But immediately, Krishna chastises him, and people who, nowadays, we fight with useless people who have no understanding of Vedic knowledge, and they think that God put me on this world to enjoy, so I should just enjoy everything that moves, and something dumb like that. They don't even have conception of the difference between body and the soul, and they have no understanding about this at all. But those who have some background in Vedic knowledge, they may put forward arguments which may seem pretty dharmic. They may put forward arguments which may seem very shastric. They may put forward arguments which may seem very, very convincing. They have that. They may use logic, nyaya. They may even quote the shrutis and all these things and all this kind of stuff. They may do these things, but what is the use of all these things if they're missing the point? What's the purpose of all the Shastra? What's the purpose of
love Krishna.
To know Krishna, to love Krishna. The purpose of all dharmam to sakshat bhagavat pranitam. That dharma is coming from what the Supreme Personality of Godhead desires. That is actually what dharma is. So, an intelligent person will understand that ultimately the topmost dharma, the topmost religious principle is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the topmost principle. So Krishna at once takes the position of a teacher and chastises Arjuna, because you see, if you think about it, Krishna is, from Krishna dharma comes, from Krishna all everything desirable comes from Krishna. And Arjuna is telling adharma bhivavat Krishna. Oh Krishna, how can we do this adharma? How come you're encouraging me to do adharma? So it's actually a very it's not appropriate for someone to say Krishna is doing adharma. Many people say this, Krishna is not such a dharmic person. But immediately Krishna takes the position of a teacher and chastises Arjuna, indirectly calling him a fool. But people who have real knowledge will understand these three things. And the things we have to understand is that the Mayavadis, those who have a little, not the neo Mayavadis, but actual Mayavadis, who study Shankara's teachings and all these things, they understand very well what is matter. They understand extremely well what is spirit. They understand these two things very well. They could delineate the whole thing and help you understand the difference between matter and spirit. But they are considered to be the dumbest fools of all times. Why? Because they do not know who's the controller of both. You can literally tell how smart a person is and how dumb a person is depending on how well they know what is matter, what is spirit, and who's the controller of both. If they know who the controller of both is, then they automatically have enough knowledge. They may not be able to give all these shlokas and analyze it in this way, that way, and this way, and that way. But they will act and they will behave in such a way and they will preach in such a way that at once attachment to Krishna immediately arises. But for a person who lacks knowledge, that's why Arjuna is giving so many amazing arguments, on the basis of the soul. He's giving what is matter and what is spirit. He's giving like, fantastic arguments. Like, oh, the progeny will this will happen to the progeny. What the next generation. He's talking about Pinda. He's giving all these different explanations. He's talking about killing like his forefathers and acquiring sin. Like, the whole conception of sin will not really like hold one if they do not have a conception of a next life. You see, like, why would you be afraid of sin if all you think that this life is all in all? So he has some knowledge of matter, he has some knowledge of spirit. But because people don't have knowledge of who is the controller of both, then they're actually missing the whole point. Because even Hinduism, this is the whole thing. That they may have knowledge of matter, they may have knowledge of spirit. But because they don't have knowledge of who is the Supreme Personality of God, who is the Supreme Person, then they will suffer. That's just a natural thing. That's why they come up with all these roundabout ways to avoid surrender to Krishna. And because they come up with all these ways to avoid surrender to Krishna, then they lose what is the use of all these karmic activities that they do. There's a whole series of verses that Narada Muni, he first preaches to the Haryashvas. The Haryashvas in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you know that part of the Bhagavatam? Which canto is that? Sixth canto. Even the sixth canto, gone passing. So now you're in the sixth canto now, right? So, seventh, okay, so you know who the Haryashvas are, right? Who are they?
They're the sons, right, of Daksha?
Prajapati Daksha, right.
He wanted them to
create progeny.
Yeah, create progeny.
And like, so how many of them were there?
10,000?
10,000 Haryashvas, 10,000 Haryashvas, that would be an ecstatic 10,000 Haryashvas were there meditating on the bank, meditating on the bank of the river, and they had completely understood. They had completely understood everything. They understood like what is matter, what is spirit. And then Narada Muni comes and he gives the best brahmachari class ever. And he gives them the best brahmachari class. He's like the brahmachari acharya. Like he's a traveling sankirtan acharya. Narada Muni, like no one is a better traveling sankirtan leader, traveling sankirtan devotee than Narada Muni. He is actually, Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam, the bhakti incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Indra is the what incarnation of the Supreme Lord? Prabhupada writes this in the Bhagavatam, in Prithu Maharaj's pastimes. Indra is the lust incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So, but Narada Muni, he's a bhakti incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So Narada Muni is the greatest traveling Sankirtan devotee ever you'll ever meet. It's really awesome for Parameshwar Prabhu to stop by, It's a rare thing, But for Narada Muni to stop by, that's a really, really rare thing. Narada Muni is doing traveling Sankirtan, he stops by, he sees like all these young men, and then they're like, and then he like, he develops compassion. Don't do this to yourself. And then like, he gives them like this whole, he breaks it all down. And then every verse that he speaks, he ends it by quoting this phrase, by saying this phrase. He says, Kim asat karma bhir bhavet. Kim asat karma bhir bhavet. Kim asat karma bhir bhavet. He keeps saying this. Those are the words he keeps saying. Kim asat karma bhir bhavet. Like, what is the use of all this karma? What is the use of all these activities when you can simply surrender to Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead? What is the use? All these, the Vedas, rituals, Veda, Vada, Rata, Partha, there's so many things, Veda, Vada, Rata. There's so many people, like, they look at the Vedic knowledge and they get knowledge as to how to go to the heavenly planets, and they want to go and enjoy there, and they want to live like a dharmic life. And by living a dharmic life, they think that they will acquire enough punya karma to go to the spiritual world, not spiritual world, to go to the heavenly planets. But then what happens to these people? What happens to these people? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Traividyamam sumapaputa papa yagyanishva swargatim pratayante te punya masad yasurendra lokam ashranti divyan divideva bhogan tetam bhuktva swarga lokam vishalam shini punya marti lokam vishanti evam trai dharma manuprapanna gata gatam kama kama labhante. What do they attain? They go to the heavenly planets. Traividyamam sumapaputa papa, they learn all the Vedas, they become Trivedis, Traividyamam or Chaturvedis even. then they live like a sinless life. Swaputa. Yagya Rishva Sargatim Prartayante. They perform so much yagya. They worship the demigods, they do all these things, they perform sacrifice. And then what do they attain? They go and they attain the heavenly planets. Yagya Rishtva Swargatim Prartayante. That they perform yagya and they try to fulfill their ishta, their desire. Yagya Ishtva Swargatim Prartayante. Then, according to their desire and the austerities that they perform, then they are transferred to the heavenly planets of their favorite kind of sense gratification, the heavenly planets. Yagya Rishtva Swargatim Prartayanti. They attain this. And then Te Punyamasa the Surendra Lokam Ashnathi Divyan Divideva Bhogan. Then they attain the Surendra Loka. They attain this beautiful heavenly planets ruled by King Indra, Surendra Loka. Indra is also Surendra. Sura means the demigods. Sura Indra means a person who is the leader of the demigods. Te Punyamasa the Surendra Lokam Ashnathi Divyan Divideva Bhogan. So then he enjoys like a great level of sense gratification, like extremely pious sense gratification to the next level, Then when he enjoys it with Divideva Bhogan, with the Devis and the Devatas, he goes and he chills with the Vidyadharas, you can see over here, everyone in Miami, they have almost everyone has a fancy car, almost everyone has a Ram car that we want to buy. Almost everyone has that Mercedes GL S550, and then they all are riding on their cool things. They almost all have pretty girlfriends, and they almost seem like they all got it going for them in this way, shape, or form. But what is their happiness compared to the happiness of the Gandharvas? What is the Gandharvas' happiness compared to the happiness of the residents of the heavenly planets? They're nothing. The prettiest woman on this round looks like a frog compared to the Apsaras of the heavenly planets. And the most beautiful Apsaras of the heavenly planets look like frogs compared to the beauty of the residents of Vaikuntha and Goloka Vrindavan. But these people, they perform yajna, they perform all these things, Te punya masati surendra lokam ashtanti divyan divideva bhogan. Then what happens? Tetam bhuktva swarga lokam vishalam. Wow. They go, they enjoy swarga lokam vishalam. This whole heavenly planet is there, and they swarga lokam vishalam, their sense gratification is known as vishala. What does vishala mean? Huge. Their sense gratification is huge, enormous. We can't even imagine the amount of sense gratification that they can have. Shine punye martilok. But then, when all their, pious activities are burnt up, when all the money in the bank account is burnt up, your vacation in Hawaii is going to come to an end, and you have to come back to the grind of the cold cities and streets of New York. Go and make that money again.
Ooh.
So same thing for them. When all their pious activities are completely burned up, then what do they get? Te punya masati rashan divideva bhogan tetam bhuktva sargalokam vishalan shine punya martya lokam vishanti evam trayi dharmam anuprapanna. They may be very dharmic, they may do all these things, anuprapanna, but what do they ultimately get? Gata gatam kama kama labhante. What is the use of all these fruitive activities? Gata gatam kama kama labhante. They simply get repeated birth and death. Simply. That's what they get. Ultimately, after performing all that, after being Indra and going and killing all these demons and being the dude and being the man and doing all these things, what do you end up getting? Repeated birth and death. What's the use? What's the use? That's why Krishna immediately says, Ananyashantayanto mam yejana paripachate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogakshemam vahamya. Yeah. But for one who constantly meditates upon my transcendental form, or Krishna's transcendental form, one who meditates on Mayavadis say my transcendental form, and they expect people to meditate on them. But we are not Mayavadis. Krishna says, one who meditates upon his transcendental form, or Krishna's transcendental form, exclusively, not like a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit of this, a little bit. Exclusive devotion and meditation upon Krishna's beautiful form, and Krishna's teachings, and Krishna's pastimes, and Krishna's devotees, and all these things. For one who meditates upon that, then Krishna preserves what they have and he carries what they lack. And this is literally what separates the devotees from all these other Vedic non-devotees. Because they have knowledge of matter, they have knowledge of spirit. The Mayavadis will say, oh, what is this nonsense, living like a hog, Like, come and enjoy the Brahma Sukha. They'll come and tell you that, like the Mayavadis can be really good at explaining the futility of this material world because they're covered Buddhists, That's what Buddhism is meant for, like to give you like a very pessimistic view of this material world. But because they don't have knowledge of the Supreme, what happens to them? Yenye Ravindaksha Vimuktamanina Swayasa Bhava Avishuddha Buddhaya Aruhya Krishrena Param Padam Tada Patantyado Na Dita Yusmad Angrayaha. That Yenye Ravindaksha Vimuktamaninas, these foolish Mayavadis, they think that wow, I've attained so much knowledge, I'm able to like break free from all these gross material attachments and subtle material attachments. And now I can, but they reject the lotus feet of Krishna. And because they reject the lotus feet of Krishna, the Bhagavatam says, Avishuddha Buddhaya, that their knowledge, their intelligence is Avishuddha Buddhi. Their intelligence is contaminated. It's not pure. Because their intelligence is impure, because their knowledge is contaminated, Aruhya Krishnera Param Padam Tada Patantyadona Dita Yusmadangrayaha. They come back and fall back down into the cycle of birth and death. They fall back down into material existence. And because they fall back down into material existence, they suffer. What's the use? You become a great detached yogi and then you come and open up a hospital. How does this make sense? Why? Because they lack that proper engagement. They lack that proper engagement. And they may be very nice people, they may be very like dharmic or like whatever they may be, but they're missing the point. Why? Because they don't have full knowledge. And because they don't have full knowledge, even the greatest Mayavadis are considered to be biggest fools. Even the greatest Mayavadi. Because even Albert Einstein did not have knowledge of even spirit or matter, he's considered to be the greatest fool. Contrary to the popular opinions of the hogs and the dogs and the donkeys. The hogs and the dogs and the donkeys come together and they elect the biggest hog, dog and a donkey to be their leader. They all come together. What is all this? You turn on the TV, one Grammy song after one this and one that, Grammy nominee and MTV superstar, I don't know what else, Oscar and like this and that, all these awards they give. What is it? All the donkeys coming together. Who is the biggest donkey? That's what it is. Who is the most expert at putting everyone else in illusion? Who acted the best in order for me to forget Krishna? That's really, if you really look at it through the view of Shastra, that's exactly what it is. Which song made me complete into the bodily conception of life? Which song invoked the most amount of lusty desires in my heart? Yes, you can, you are voted number one, biggest donkey of all times. And because they do this, then they're suffering. Then they vote these people like they receive the Grammy Award one year, next year they commit suicide. Here's your idol, here's your king. Here are the people that we worship. What's the use? Athletes, they work so hard, they waste their breath and they die early. What's the use? But these are the people, why? Because it's donkey society, it's animal society. Because they may have knowledge of matter, but they may not have knowledge of spirit. But even if they have knowledge of matter and spirit, if they don't have knowledge of the Supreme, it's all completely useless. That's why Narada Muni says, Kim asat karma bhir bhavet. Kim asat karma bhir bhavet. What is the use of all these fruitive activities? What is the use of all these things? That's the ultimate brahmachari class. If you really want to listen to a brahmachari class, read that section of the Bhagavatam. That's really a brahmachari class. You'll understand the futility of this entire material world. And the worst thing is, people, they...
The Gita is too small.
Okay, I found it. This is, okay, if you really want to understand life in Miami, study this verse, 1838 of the Bhagavad Gita. Vishayendriya samyoga yattad agriam ritopamam pariname vishameva tat sukam raja samsrutam. That the happiness which is desired, which is derived from contact with the senses with their objects and which appears like nectar at first but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. So you can see the city is like this, it's completely like this, it's just young boy meets young girl and it's like nectar in the beginning, but it turns out to be poison in the end. Complete poison in the end. I was telling you of that example, that anyway, someone was telling me, it can be anyone, that someone they know, they had like this extremely like lovey-dovey like movie in the movies like romance with like their boyfriend or something in some place in South America, and then something happened. This guy ditched her or something, and this Mataji got so fried out that she passed stool and rubbed it all over the guy's expensive car steering wheel. You were not there for the. Oh no! You missed it.
bro.
Oh, you missed
Chandan
it.
recorded
Chandan
it.
recorded it. You gotta.
It's worth listening.
It's worth listening to. We had Parmeshwar Prabhu came in, like we had a brahmacharya class, and we, churned the nectar.
Yeah, I don't want it.
Yeah, we really churned the nectar on that one. So she did that. But it all started off like how it is in Maya. It's like nectar in the beginning, Jai Hari Bol, and like next thing you know, she does that. Can you imagine, like, how, but that's the opposite side of it. What we're seeing out there, I mean, like, even we were out there yesterday in Wynwood, and then, like, there's like this really nasty, like, thing where, like, you can party, like, in a moving bus. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, when people are drinking, it's like a.
No. Pedaling is one thing, but there's like, that was your business idea. But, like, there was another one, there's like a bus, and like they're like having like a big like tick, and like they're all they're open top and they're all drinking and they're all being like promiscuous and like dancing all lustily and all that.
Yeah.
And like I remember getting there and like I think that's when they got on the van. They're all like fired up, like wow, like going crazy and all these things, But then the van keeps going around like the different parts of Wynwood, and then like by the time it was time for like after 1 or 2 hours of it, they all the same people like they were all like trying to talk to each other and like trying to socialize, and it all died out. And then they were completely burnt out. Another party came and they're all like, yeah. And then again, before we left, we saw them and they were all like, oh, go. It's just so bogus, It's just like, and like, they realize, oh man, I wasted so much money. Like, what the hell am I doing? And it's just like so completely bogus, So that is like the other flip side of it. Please study this purport. Study this purport. I just read the first line of it just for the, just like a spoiler. A young man and a young woman meet. And the senses drive the young man to see her, to touch her, to have sexual intercourse. In the beginning, this may be very pleasing to the senses. But at the end, or after some time, it's just like poison. I'm going to read the whole purport. They are separated, or there is divorce. There is lamentation, there is sorrow, etc. Such happiness is always in the mode of passion. Happiness is derived from a combination of the senses, and the sense objects is always a cause of distress and should be avoided by all means. And if you really want to know more nectar of this, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj gave this lecture called Illicit Sex is Very Bad. I strongly recommend devotees listen to it. But it's a really amazing lecture, and and we were listening to it yesterday before we did distributing books in Wynwood, and it's just like so on point, But this is what happens when people have no knowledge of what is matter, what is spirit, and who's the control of both. And what's even worse, and this is where society really screws up, is that they make people who have no knowledge of spirit or the supreme person the leaders of society, the teachers of society. The billboards are all run by people who have no knowledge of spirit or the supreme. The advertisements, the TV, the media is run by people who have no knowledge of what is matter and who's the supreme. They don't know. They have no knowledge of these things. They just have some material knowledge. They're really good at Photoshop, most likely. They're really good at like whatever else you guys use to like make an ugly girl look pretty. Like whatever programs they are, like what is it, Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, all these things, like to create that illusion. That's what they're good at. And because they're good at, the entire society is like really gone to hell, basically. That's why it's very important for us to distribute Prabhupada's books and save them from the Prakriti Sahajas. We should be very intent upon doing this. Somehow or the other, pray for them, do something. But we gotta distribute these books, because by reading these books, by people actually getting this knowledge, they will save themselves from so much trouble. I remember once someone asked me something, if you could meet yourself when you were 18 and just say one line, what would you tell yourself? I really thought about it, and I thought, I'd tell myself, follow the 4 regulative principles and chant 16 hours of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and accept a bona fide spiritual master. You will save yourself so much trouble. Can you imagine how amazing our lives would be if we were just following the 4 regs right from we were born? and like chanted 16 rounds and followed a bona fide spiritual master, right? How much trouble we would have saved ourselves. You know? That's why we should distribute these books to people. It's never too late. We're still blissful and ecstatic. So we should distribute these books. It's the most important thing. I guess the changevadi people will get really mad at me for this. But anyway, distribute these books is the most amazing thing, the best thing to do. We chant the holy names of Krishna, bring people into Krishna consciousness. By doing this, we can expose the rascals, expose the cheaters, and establish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should always understand this. If you want to be successful in your Krishna consciousness, please make this purport of Srila Prabhupada. In this one purport Prabhupada writes in one place, I think it's in the second canto, I think it's the 9th chapter, prayers, citing the Lord's version. And in the Chatur Shloki, Prabhupada writes in one place, I think, maybe I'm getting the reference wrong, but Prabhupada writes, an easygoing life and a life in Krishna consciousness do not go well together.
Easygoing life and attainment of Krishna consciousness.
An easygoing life and attainment of Krishna consciousness do not go well together. This is the grit, this is the grind. Spiritual life is the grind, Krishna consciousness is the grind. We can't have an easygoing life. We just can't. If you have an easygoing life, we're doing something wrong. So there needs to be hard work. There needs to be all these things. Because by doing all these things, you'll attain Krishna. And then in the next purport, Prabhupada writes, all the bona fide followers of Lord Brahma Sampradaya will get to shake their hand with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because when, that's the original handshake or whatever it's called. When Brahma had succeeded in his austerities, Lord Vishnu came and shook his hand.
Really?
You see, you didn't read the Bhagavatam. And expose the fools and the rascals. And the misleading. See, Lord Vishnu came and shook. If you can, Guru Maharaj gave a lecture on that verse. It's called Renegades. If you want to listen to it, it's really awesome. You read that purport. But Prabhupada says, you shake, the Supreme Personality of God will come and shake your hand. Good job, So that's something to look forward to, But that's, we should understand this, that and to understand and act upon this platform of tattva or Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam, on the platform of realization of Bhagavad Tattva, that takes a lot of guts. That takes a lot of just now we were talking to someone on the phone that inviting us to come to Kirtan with them. And we were all like, yeah, Prabhu, sure, we'll absolutely do Kirtan. But we straight up told him on his face, we were like, Prabhu, but if there's Mataji singing, just get up and walk out of the temple room. And he laughed, and then he thought I was joking. And then he said, are you serious? I said, yes, Prabhu, we've done it before. I don't want to do it again, but if we have to, we will. He said, okay, don't worry, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. We just be straight, and it's not such an easy thing. What will people think? Oh no, we're calling the sahajas. Oh, what will people think? Who cares what they think? We don't care what they think. This is the real thing. This is the real thing. We say the real thing, and it's not an easy path. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, oh man, Bengali is escaping my mind. But the road of spiritual life is filled with thorns. Koti.
That's the Sanskrit one.
He quotes that verse. Either it's Bengali or it's Sanskrit, I don't know. But the path of spiritual attainment is one filled with thorns. But it's worth walking that path. Yeah, I know. If you can find me that quote, I'll be eternally grateful. But yeah, I really love that quote. So you understand this, it's not easy. We will be told things we don't want to hear. We will be asked to do things we don't want to do. We will be put into circumstances which go against our plans. There will be imperfections in this material world if you're a karmi, if you're a sahaja, or if you're a devotee, or aspiring to be a real devotee. But the imperfections that come from understanding what is matter and what is spirit and who's the controller of both, by learning this from a bona fide spiritual master and by following him, this imperfection will actually help you become completely perfect in your spiritual life. So it's an austerity worth taking. This is Tapo Divyam. This is a divine austerity. My dear sons, do not waste your life like hogs and dogs that eat stool and engage in sense gratification. This life is meant for divine austerity. By performing this divine austerity, we can attain the lotus feet of Krishna. Rishabdev says this. Nayam deho deha bhajrani loke kashtan kaman arhade vidbhujam tapo divyam putrakayena satvad yasmad brahmatyo sokyam tvam anantam. That we can have unlimited bliss of Brahma Sukha. We don't want to be like the sahajas or the karmis. who will like enjoy sleeping in during the morning hours. We don't want to be like them. We don't want to enjoy the Maya Sukha of this material life. We want to enjoy the Brahma Sukha, the real bliss of spiritual life. And all this we can get by following a bona fide follower of Lord Krishna, by following a bona fide disciple of Srila Prabhupada. By doing this, by following them, then we'll actually, even the imperfection will give us great joy. Because we know ultimately Krishna is personally arranging everything for us. In order for us to see it like this, in order for us to act this way, we should understand, if we put everything in God's hand, we will see God's hand in everything. It's a very simple thing to understand, but easy to say, hard to follow. But we should aspire to follow. So anyway, I'll end the class here. Questions, comments, protests, corrections. Anyone has anything? Yes.
Well, I was thinking of, you were mentioning like the billboards of society and that the leaders nowadays don't have understanding of what is matter and what is spirit.
And who's the controller of both?
Yeah, that's a good point. Prabhupada talks about this in the light of the Bhagavad, how like people who have spiritual understanding, they like, he talks about the glowworms and the luminaries. Like they're hidden, like people who have Vedic knowledge, hidden, like, but the people who are like, they don't know anything, they're like way up there.
Right.
I'm kind of wondering, like, is there ever going to be a point in time where, like, the Hare Krishna movement excels in such a way that, like, where, there are billboards and there are leaders in society? Is that even, like, necessary?
Yeah, it is possible. Srila Prabhupada predicted a golden age of Lord Chaitanya. And it is possible if we simply double our book distribution every year. It's not my wishful thinking or like my over boastful gusto, but Prabhupada said this. If we simply double our book distribution every year, everything will change.
And movement is at such like a, not even a minority, it's like way even below that. It's really
Yeah. But, they may have a big army, but we have a Brahmastra. We can wipe them all out. Like in the Mahabharata, Arjuna is fighting the Samstapakas and the Narayana army of Krishna's Narayana army, And then he's stuck in a conundrum because, the Pandavas army is getting crushed by this great king. And then all these Samstapakas and Trigarthas and the Narayana army are I challenge Arjuna to fight with him until death. Arjuna doesn't know what to do, so then he has to go protect, his brothers, but he also has to defeat these people, doesn't know what to do. Then he invokes a Brahma weapon. And he's he invokes it and millions of arrows all just strike down all his opponents and wipe out Shohinis of all these soldiers. So yeah, it may seem but we have the Brahmastras. We have the holy name. We have all these things. And because we have all Nama Shreshtam Manumapi Sachiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyayajam Urupurim Mathurim Goshamatim Radha Kundam Girivara Maho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natoshna. That's why we offer a respectful obeisance to the spiritual master who has given us the holy name, who has given us Vrindavan, who has given us Mathura, who has given us a knowledge of Radha Kund and all these places. Because we have something much more superior. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda. We have something, we are actually outnumbering them. We are the Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda. If they know it or not, they're actually on our side. They just have to get to know it, that's all. Anything else? Yes.
One thing to add with that. One thing that Srila Prabhupada said, there's a lot of things that Srila Prabhupada said about spreading Krishna consciousness, but one thing he said also was that the farms, that people would come to the farms by the millions. And even if you say that's an exaggeration, whether you could say that, but the point is that so many people will come to the farms, come to through Krishna consciousness to the farms or whatever. Probably didn't really say that about anything else by the millions, at least in my knowledge.
Yeah.
So the thing is, one thing we have to understand, with the orders of the spiritual master, and just what's what I'm looking for, but just the way that the spiritual energy works and manifests through the material world is that we can't understand it, because you can analyze things that you're distributing so many books but not so many people are coming, what's the result, I'm chanting Krishna, you know, Hare Krishna Vaisnava Desire. Like, we don't really understand how things work out. Sometimes the devotee is like, you know, whatever, their whole life they're struggling Krishna conscious, they're following everything, and then like the last like moment or whatever, it's like Krishna makes an arrangement and they're in Vrindavan, they're surrounded by devotees, and it's like fast track. So it's like, you know, we don't know how, you know, Krishna's going to arrange those things, but there are like great acharyas and great devotees that have that vision. So you have to take shelter of them and serve them, and then we just have faith. Because they have the intelligence, they have the vision, and then by serving them, we get that faith and that vision also to like push forward, and then we get like glimpses of realization on how things can change. Because you never know. I mean, it's like things like, you know, America seems, you know, steady, strong, and everything, and then like whatever. Let's say the devotees, like theoretically speaking, they had like whatever 30, 40 farms or something by now, and then just things collapse, and then everything goes to chaos. But then the devotees have like those central projects like full force running, and there's like, you know, they kind of iron out all the nicks in them. And then the government and people, well, we don't know how can we emulate that? And that's what happened during Harikesha's time. They asked him for guidance, but he wasn't able to give them an answer. So it's like these things that like Srila Prabhupada told us to do, and these instructions he gave, this like we don't like realize like the potency and like what Krishna was speaking to Prabhupada to prepare us for. So it can happen easily if Krishna arranges. It just, you know, it's a matter of if, when, and where. So, anyways, I'm going to
Yeah. So yeah, do not think it's impossible. It's actually possible.
Possible is a word in the full dictionary.
Impossible is a word in the full dictionary. Yes.
Remember when he was in the DC temple?
Yeah.
And Prabhuji that was speaking with us, he explained that you know, we just have to be like an instrument for Prabhupada's desire. So that's kind of how Chalki was saying, Prabhupada was saying about like their desire is completely pure and it's like completely spiritual. So it's not like it's like anything material. So it will happen. It's like, you know, you never know. Like,
Whether we'll be an instrument or not.
well, no, just like time, place, and like circumstances. You know, it's gonna happen.
I got one thing too, just to add on that more, but just, I mean, we just like speaking like, let's say, like maybe like 80 or so years ago, whatever, 1940s, 1950s, 60s. So in Mayapur was like, you know, there was like some temples here and there, and it was like mostly just like, you know,
farmland.
Yeah, farmland. And like no one could imagine like what's being developed there now, that temple, the planetarium. We'll just speak of all the devotees, like Western devotees coming there and everything and trying to like build that. I mean, even that was like inconceivable. But they have, I don't know how many millions of dollars they put into that temple. But the thing is, how people think, where is that money going to come from? Like, how is that going to happen? Who's going to do that? But Krishna made the arrangement for Ambarish Maharaj, the freaking heir of the fortune, to fund that project. So he took that up and like, you know, I don't know exactly how he came to Krishna consciousness on how that whole thing.
Nah, I know they tried to do it. He received some books and he was in touch with the devotees.
And the thing is, I mean, he was like inspired, I'm sure, by Srila Prabhupada's purity. And he could see that, like, because you got to be inspired by something to give like millions and millions of dollars to a project. So I'm just making the point that, like, you know, when preaching Krishna consciousness, like, influential people come and then they can do amazing things. And he's funding this whole project. And who knows, like, how that's going to affect, like, the global preaching. Like, people love to go and see, like, you know, whatever, like, huge, like, religious structures and like amazing things like that. So.
Yeah. I mean, like, who would have thought, you know, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying an Adbhuta Mandir will come about.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, like, you know, he said that in when, like 1800s?
Yeah.
And people were like, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah.
Where is the Adbhuta Mandir, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, he had the vision and it's happening. That's why Bhakti Vinoda Diki Gaurara Sampada. You know, we see that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is seeing the opulence of Lord Chaitanya expanding. They're seeing it. You know, once Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you know, when some Britishers came, he made the Gaudiya Math people serve them meat and cigarettes, you know. And then, you know, Bhakti Krishna Maharaj was like, but Prabhupada, you know, but how can we, you know, offer this? And he said, what do you mean? I already planned this many lifetimes ago. So all this is part of their plan for many lifetimes. Whether we want to be a part of it or not, that's up to us. We're going to be, 1,000 Bhagavatam sets a day are going to be distributed because that's a desire of the previous acharyas. Whether we do it or not is up to us, but it's going to happen. There is going to be a Krishna conscious revolution. Whether we want to be those revolutionaries or not is up to us, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen with or without us. Better that, you know, we're here, we might as well try our best to do what we can. So we understand it like that. Anything else? Okay, all right. Yes, Mitraman.
I'm like one point in relation to that. Because I read something like specifically dealing with that. And, Guru Maharaj has like a section entitled, in that there's a Buddha mission book, Taking Over the World Immediately. And like he kind of like addresses that point. It comes in like a section where he like talks about like getting the leaders in like society to like follow Krishna consciousness, like what you're saying. And like he said, or Prabhupada said, he was like quoting, he said the inspiration for that, like had the means to like attain that, is basically, there's like different quotes, but basically it comes down to just like following the basic principles, meaning like, you know, whatever, like following the 4 regs, chanting 16 rounds, like Prabhupada was saying. And like you see the result from that. There were like, you know, like 4 or 5 letters from Prabhupada, quotes that I like vaguely remember, and he was like, kind of like just stressing that. And even what you were saying is the same thing, like have like in regards to like influencing like the leaders. Like there are like so many programs to, I mean, which are okay, but like, you know, Prabhupada made like a big effort, and the devotees made an effort. They even had like a political campaign, but like at the end of it, you know, Prabhupada, like his ultimate, like you could say, summation of it was that like if you distribute books, then the population becomes favorable, and like the leaders also become favorable. Because even if you get a leader in like society, like what can they do? Because it's like, you know, the president may be like Krishna conscious, but then there's like 50 people in the Senate, and then there's Congress, and there's like, you know, they can't do anything. So anyway, just the point, like wherever Krishna consciousness, I was thinking wherever Krishna consciousness is like followed, like even the basics, you see that flourishes. Just like, I mean, you were just saying like Mayapur. I mean, even New York, like in 1966, it was like a storefront. In 1977, it was like, you know, they had a skyscraper building. And it's like, you know, that's just like 11 years, and it's not like something. Of course, they were sending money from like international ISKCON to like get that temple, but like, you know, that is like amazing, you know.
Were they actually sending money internationally? Because as far as I know, the story for the 55th Street Temple.
And this should, well, Prabhupada took the money.
Prabhupada,
I think after that, yeah, I think they were continuing to sing.
No, they collected all the money, and Prabhupada said, "Let me see the money." They're like, they're like, "Oh no, Prabhupada is serious." And then like, imagine you collect all this money to like buy the 55th Street skyscraper building. Prabhupada took it, and they had to raise it again because I think like, what's the sannyasi name starts with D? Dhananjay. Drishtadyumna.
That's one.
Like, you know
What did he do?
his father was like a.
It's just a doing.
His father was like like the owner of one of the biggest alcohol companies. So like, and he got that luxury, you know, probably give it, you know. So then again they had to raise. So then Rameshwar Swami at that time came up with the idea that the BBT donated $250,000 worth of books to the book distributors and told them, "You'll sell these books and collect the money like that." And they did that, and they also, that's how they, I mean, that's what Rameshwar Prabhu was telling me. I think that's the history of the 55th Street Temple, Lakshmi. That's right. You know something about that?
I don't know. I think I know the instance of like Prabhupada taking the money.
Yeah, that's how they recollected.
They
recollected. BBT donated them $250,000. They should do that to us too. Give us $250,000 worth of bag with them. Multiply that by 3, we get $750,000. What about multiplied by 300? Anyway, anything else? Okay, all right. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai.